So I guess the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about habits are bad habits. That's not probably not helpful, but it's. I think of I can't have one piece of chocolate. I end up having three. I can't have one beer. I have two. I can't, you know, skip an exercise without skipping 2 days worth of exercise. I think it's sort of just bad habits. But I guess if I start unpicking what a habit is, I think of it as it's a shortcut, it's an association, it's something that's not consciously thought of. And I guess speaking as a psychologist, just thinking about where that comes from, I think it comes from a place deep in our kind of fight, fright, flight mechanism that sees things in more black and white, binary, time saving, efficient terms to kind of put our resources where they need to be put. And so um, I think that they come from a good place. I think habits are inherently positive. They are a shortcut. Now, if we don't put some control and some kind of measures and some thought to them, they might drift towards unhelpful habits, but they can equally be really positive associations that we can use. So I guess in one sense, a habit needn't be good or bad. A habit is just an association between a cue, a prompt, a nudge, and a behavior, and that there's some kind of reward cycle that happens that leads us to do that again and again and again and again. And after X number of repetitions, it becomes something that we don't even think about. It's just an automated, easy, shortcut process that we follow. And I guess I think of it therefore like, water coming down the side of a mountain, that it will take the path of least resistance initially, maybe like 1 million years ago, and then 500,000 years ago that has formed into a particular ravine, and then the same time again later it's a clear channel. Then it becomes the pathway that is just the most obvious pathway for that water to follow. And that is exactly what happens neurologically, that we form these pathways, and these neural pathways become thick and strong and familiar and well trodden, and go to journeys that get made by our brains in an effort to save us the process of having to rethink, redecide, and all of the kind of the pain and the discomfort of weighing difficult things up. So I guess that takes me to thinking about the prompt, the behavior, and the reward, and that cycle as being the habit of cycle of the cycle of habits. And I guess that also takes me to the idea of busting habits, and how that process of busting habits, if getting into a habit is nothing more than repetition, if excellence is nothing more than a habit, then getting into new habits is nothing more than repetition. And it needs some thought, some consideration, some mindful engagement, thinking about it, being a bit more present. And for some of us, that might be more of a scientific process, like kind of connecting the dots, seeing the pattern, making the connections between how I was feeling, what led me open to a particular trigger or a stimulus or a prompt, what I then did, how I felt or how I reacted afterwards, or what I thought about afterwards, and how that fed into that cycle. So some kind of tool or support to help break that process down and become a bit more aware of it. That might be one route into breaking habits, and another might be just some sort of clever, just some slightly more sophisticated nudges. A bit like the Google nudge of making the plates in the canteen a little smaller. So you can still look and feel like you're loading it up to the max. You're just loading up a smaller plate, and therefore you're eating less. I guess I do that one around exercise. So I will lay out my sports kit for the next day the night before, so that when I wake up, I don't even think about what I'm going to wear. That I've already nudged myself into wearing those clothes, because I know that if I get dressed into my sports kit, I will also take exercise that day, because I don't have to go through the process of making a decision about should I, shouldn't I. I'm in my sports kit already. It's going to happen. And that's my nudge to myself. So there are some that you can just kind of trip yourself into. There are some that you might need support with. And there are others which you might need a friend or a buddy or an aide to help you stay honest to that. I get my 14-year-old boy to help me remember to kind of take note of what I've eaten in a day, and to kind of to weigh myself. That's my current sort of habit that I'm trying to get out of, is sort of bad dietary habits. And I know that I need someone else to support me. And so kind of making connections, seeing the habit for what it is, being clever about breaking into that cycle, and I guess critically thinking about the goal that you're wanting to achieve, a to goal, a towards goal, as opposed to something that I'm trying to move away from or avoid. And we know that goals that are defined in terms of some rich picture of something that I want, something that I'm driven to, an ambition, a desire, a wish, are far more sticky than ones that you're running away from. I'm trying to reduce my debt in my life is very different from I'm trying to lead a cash-rich life. They're two very different goals. One, you could just reduce your indebtedness a little bit and suddenly you've lost your impetus for change. The other, you're constantly yearning for. So there's something in the definition of that. And then there's something about who you need around you to support you in busting those habits.